If you closed your eyes and I said, this is a government that's cut winter fuel, refused to take nearly 500,000 children out of poverty with the two-child limit, increased tuition fees on young people above the rate of inflation, and now is inflicting £5 billion worth of cuts on disabled people. If you'd closed your eyes and thought, well, who's in power? It doesn't sound like a Labour Party in power to me. And I'm worried that we're going to get more of the same, which will be another round of cuts. So it looks as though another round of departmental cuts, anything between 5 and 10%. Large numbers of civil servants being laid off, although we're not sure why they're being laid off because we don't know what jobs and what they're doing, who will be laid off. And I'm just anxious that we're going to be blamed for another round of austerity. And that isn't what we were elected for. So therefore, if I was doing the spring statement, I would open up a wider debate about the fairness in our society, the distribution of wealth and power. And I'd be looking at how you redistributed both of those things. And in particular, I would actually say that, look, I support fiscal rules, but you have to be flexible in their interpretation depending on the circumstances that we're in. And actually, to abide by, with rigidity, this sort of fiscal rules, where you're ruling out any form of redistribution through a fairer taxation system, I think is a huge mistake.
She needs to be much, much bolder. And the problem is that, the markets swing between budgets and fiscal events, and that impacts the Chancellor's headroom by about £19 billion on average if you go back to 2000. And so you need to have some decent headroom. Otherwise, you're going to come unstuck. And both she and I had very narrow headroom. The way to get that headroom and to have much more stability in public finances is to say very boldly, the welfare bill is too high. And for working age adults, we are going to bring it back to pre-pandemic levels, 2019 levels. The pandemic finished 3 years ago. It's not an unreasonable objective for a parliament. That puts £49 billion in the coffers, and then we can actually restore some stability.
We need now, because of the economic circumstances we're in, we need more flexibility on the fiscal rule, particularly around the issue of taxation. And I would be introducing taxes that would redistribute wealth to a certain extent, and we're not talking about huge changes. We're talking almost marginal changes around capital gains tax, financial transaction tax on the city that seems to be booming at the moment, pensions tax relief, those sorts of things where you could put together a package which would prevent austerity.
At the moment, the welfare state is not working in the way that was intended. And if Rachel Reeves is properly radical, we can end up with a solution that is much more socially just and means that there's more money to put into things like the NHS and to supporting pensioners who can't work anymore, and also for the things that we know are coming down the track, like spending more money on defence, because we can see what Putin is trying to do in Europe. So it's time to really think hard about whether we are spending wisely or whether, in fact, the way the welfare state works is actually trapping people in benefits, stopping them get back to work in a way that's really bad for them and their families.
My order of voting is a judgment is always what's best for my constituents, what's best for my country, and then what is best for my party. And actually, that's what I think most MPs, well, many of them do, most MPs should. So when it comes up to, for example, on this issue around cutting £5 billion from payments and benefits for disabled people, if it's a cut like that, I whatever the whip says, I will be voting against. But what I'll be trying to do, though, is engage in a dialogue with government ministers and putting up other options and amendments. It'll be a constructive engagement. But I wasn't elected as an MP to go into Parliament and impoverish my constituents, particularly the most vulnerable. So there's some principles you have to abide by,
Rachel Reeves does want to grow the economy. And if she wants to get out of the bind that we're in now, then she needs to be very bold on welfare reform, bold on public sector efficiency. And remember that, we've got 800,000 vacancies in the economy at the moment. There are 7 million adults who are not in work and not studying. So we could fill those vacancies, 7 or 8 times over. So it's also really good for growing the economy.